Hello, so once again I'm coming to you with more exciting news, and sweet lordy, there's so much coming every single day that I haven't had time to finish my updated video on the dwarven lore and theories yet. But you know what? No complaints from me, because today we'll talk about the article in Game Informer. For people who love Dragon Age lore, it's a very fun article to read. The magazine gave permission to use screens and content from it. In exchange, I'm leaving you guys with their social media handles. Okay, so let's talk about some new information about the lore and story in Dragon Age The Veilguard. In the meantime, I will also address some questions I saw people had on this channel. So, unlike some people speculated, Rooks of all backgrounds will start their journey in Minratos, the capital of Tevinter. So, whatever your racial background and whatever faction you pick, the game will start in a tavern where Rook displays his fighting capabilities by getting in a brawl. Soon after, you will get out of the establishment and head out to find Nev. And that's the first thing in the gameplay revealed from a week ago. An interesting note from Corinne Bush, the game director at BioWare, is that the camera will change depending on Rook's height. So what you see throughout the game will be slightly different if you're a short king dwarf and if you're a giant canary. Except for important characters in the game, all other NPCs will be designed in the game character creator, which we already know will allow massive customization options. So when in the first scene, Varric and Rook walk by a pub on the right, all that crowd is a pretty good representation of the different looks we'll get to achieve. So, as seen in the gameplay, Rook and Varric eventually find Harding and Nev. Together they start heading towards Solas's hideout, located under the statue of Andrasta, called Our Lady of Victory. On the way, they fight Venatori cultists, who turns out are trying to seize power in the Imperium and are using the chaos caused by Solas's ritual to take over the city. I think this final confirmation of the events might turn out to be good news for people who I've seen have been complaining about the lack of Templars. According to Dragon Age Absolution, Meredith is stuck in a red lyrium crystal and is launching a crusade against Tevinter, so the Red Templars might make an appearance in some quests to balance the existence of the imperial cults of mages. What's interesting is that Meredith has an army of Red Templars corrupted by the Red Lyrium. I also pointed out to you in the past video that the Venatori are actively using Red Lyrium too, so there's a chance that Meredith may enter a temporary alliance with the Venatori. It would be unlike her though, because she hates mages and especially blood mages, which the Venatori are, but now at least what connects them is the use of blighted lyrium. There's also a chance that both of these groups' use of tainted lyrium will make them susceptible to the control of the evanuris. Either way, I think that Templars making some kind of appearance is very likely.
Yes, Knight Commander.
I will have my war.
The article sheds light on the events that are not presented in the gameplay. I assume it's because of the massive spoilers. Rook and his 3 companions get to the hideout, and the article says, as we traverse deeper and deeper into this hideout, more of Solas's murals appear on the walls, and the things get more elven. Rhodes says, this is because you are symbolically going back in time, as Minratos is a city built by mages on the bones of what was originally the home of the elves. At the heart of this hideout, we discover Solas's personal alluvian. This magical mirror-like structure allows the gang to teleport to Arlathan Forest, where Solas is secretly performing the ritual. Personally, I was very happy to see a confirmation about a speculation I made a while ago. So basically, as soon as the Dragon Age Day trailer from 2003 came out, I started paying closer attention to the audio because BioWare hinted to listen closely, and I discovered that the trailer had hidden sounds of alluvians in between scenes from different areas. I called it right then that we would be using Solas's network of alluvians to travel, and it seems like that's how we are going to move around a massive northern Theras map. By the way, guys, I will be making some references to my previous videos, so if you want to watch them, I will leave the links down below in the description and in the comment section. Moving on, the group enters the Arlathan forest, using Solas's alluvian, and they see a ritual being performed. It's something I'll discuss more closely with you once the video about the dwarves is out, because I'll be talking with you about the Titan theories and what might end up happening with them in Dragon Age The Veilguard. We finally also got another clear answer regarding the new design of the spirits. I'm sure you realize that they looked more veiny, and turns out it's not necessarily tied to lyrium or lyrium veins. It's more related to the fact that spirits represent emotions. So the nervous system is supposed to remind the players that they are creatures living off emotions around them, good or bad. Okay, so from the gameplay we know that Rook and companions get to the ritual site. Varric decides he's going to try to talk Solas out of tearing down the veil. Rook in the meanwhile picks one of the companions to go collapse a statue onto the ritual site in order to interrupt it. While Rook was getting to the statues, we could hear a discussion between Solas and Varric. Varric tries to point out how Solas's plans keep on failing, and in a somewhat hidden conversation we can vaguely hear Solas say, "I understand your hesitance, but what I do now must be done. This is beyond your comprehension." The article finally somewhat explains why Solas didn't have many other options, and we also finally get a confirmation that Elganan and Gilanan are going to be the antagonists in the next game. This is another big W for this channel because that's the guess we made here. That aside, the author, Wesley LeBlanc, writes, he, meaning Solas, was attempting to move Elganan and Gilanan to a new prison because the one he had previously constructed was failing. Rook and Varric obviously don't know any lore theories, so in their eyes Solas was just going to destroy the world, and they did not understand the dangers of what would have happened if the old gods had been prematurely destroyed by the wardens in Dragon Age Inquisition. It's not 100% sure yet, but the evanuris are in some way tied to the old gods, and one or the other is what was holding the veil together. A very, very old post by David Geider I showed you in, I think, my video called "The Chantry Was Always Right," talks about the Maker not having the old gods whispering to humans in his plans. My theory in that video was that the Maker is most likely either Solas or Solas and Mythal together, and that the Chant of Light and other religions have quite decent perspectives on the history of Theras, as long as you read in between the lines and take into consideration the biases, because after all, religions are often tools used by the rulers to control their subordinates. So for anybody who loves Solas, now we understand why he had to leave and there was indeed no other choice. Not even being in love with the Inquisitor was important enough when the world was in such grave danger. And remember his reaction when he found out the Wardens were trying to raise an army of demons to slay the two remaining old gods?
We must stop the Wardens from carrying out this insane plan, Inquisitor. To seek out these old gods deliberately in some bizarre attempt to preempt the Blight.
They won't succeed. We're going to stop them together.
Thank you. I've been on my own for so long. It's difficult to get used to having the support of others. Those fools and duty. Responsibility is not expertise. Action is not inherently superior to inaction. Forgive me. The entire idea is unnerving.
Okay, so the ritual got interrupted, and before we discuss what happens next, I unfortunately have more bad news for people who did not want Varric to die in the prologue. The article perhaps confirms that too. Let me briefly remind you what the whole drama around Varric is about. So aside from visual evidence in the gameplay that we already discussed in the past, I also talked with you about how during a Q&A with BioWare I recorded one of the employees, in my opinion, accidentally spoiling that Varric was gonna be gone. Not sure if at the beginning or at the end of the game. His co-workers tried to salvage the situation in the funniest way possible. One guy, while really nervously stuttering, tried to make it sound like the other employee was talking about Solas, not Varric in the past tense. And then a third BioWare employee started chuckling at the whole situation. Anyway, here's the recording. I guess let's listen to it once again because it was kind of funny.
The writer had a story that they wanted to tell with her, so it just made sense.
You know, I think it actually, to piggyback on that, that's something I hadn't really even thought about that much. And it's not a huge part of her character, but she tends to be one of the people that have the most insight into who he was.
Yeah, that's exactly, and yeah, that's a great way of looking at it too, is it also provides you with a little bit of that perspective for players who've been around, you know, who played with previous Dragon Age games, but also for new ones. Who was Solus? What kind of character was he? Yeah, it's a great, using characters to provide windows onto the world is honestly one of my favorite things.
Yeah, while BioWare accidentally spoiling the lore is funny, unfortunately Varric's possible death as early as in the prologue might turn out to be a very depressing experience for some players. Some of you claimed you would not touch the game if that was the case. Ultimately, I don't think we'll know until the release, and even if you feel strongly about our dwarven companions passing, I would trust BioWare when it comes to the quality of storytelling. When I said that the article unfortunately confirms the suspicions, I meant that while the author did talk about Varric before the ritual is interrupted, once it is interrupted, he does not mention Varric being a part of the story at all. And so we read, "We stopped Solas's ritual and seemingly saved the world for now. Rook passes out moments later and wakes up in a dreamlike landscape to the voice of none other than Solas. He explains a few drops of Rook's blood interacted with the ritual, connecting them to the Fate forever. Unfortunately, Solas is trapped in the Fate by our doing, and these gods are now free. After their encounter with Solas, Rook wakes up with Harding and Nev in the lair of the Dread Wolf himself, a special magical realm in the Fate called the Lighthouse." So, as you can see, there's no mention of Varric anymore. We'll circle back to this in a moment though. For now, however, let's discuss the lighthouse. We know the lighthouse was going to be our base. Now we finally know what it will look like. It seems like it will be a big structure surrounded by floating islands, all located in the Fade itself. It also explains why BioWare decided not to bring back blood magic, because blood magic weakens one's connection to the Fade. The lighthouse used to be Solas's home, so we're promised to see even more frescoes made by him. The author also points out how exploring this area will give us a good idea about loneliness that Solas was going through. It will also feel like, I quote, "when you go to a friend's house and see their bedroom for the first time. You get to learn more about them." During a recent Q&A, the BioWare employees joked that we might see Solas with hair, so if that's going to happen, the image of hairy Solas is most likely going to be in the lighthouse. Alright, but speaking of which, where is Solas? So, in my opinion, he becomes trapped in the Black City. That's the only reason why the author would say that he's trapped in the Fade. That's the only place that neither Solas nor the evanuris would be able to escape. I even have further evidence that I did not see anybody point out yet, but I did mention it a couple days ago on Twitter. So remember the video trailer from 2020? Solas is shown to be in some kind of dark room in front of this fresco. Normally his frescoes have a wide range of colors being used, and this one only has 4, unless you count white, and it's black, golden, blue and red. Black and red would be colors he could extract from blighted objects in the Black City. Blue is the color of lyrium, and in case you're wondering what pure lyrium would be doing in the Black City, there's a possibility that Solas simply cleansed some red lyrium. It's something that can be done. And gold should still be present in the Black City because it used to be the Golden City. We can also see some gold on Solas's and evanuris' clothes, who, by the way, finally have been confirmed to be corrupted, because there was some doubt around that. Once we are done exploring the lighthouse, once again we'll take an Eluvian to travel forward. It does not respond to us the way it would to Solas, so the team gets thrown back to a random place in the Arlathan forest where the failed ritual has caused massive destruction. The area for the first time ever is overrun by Darkspawn, and corruption is destroying the location. In the past, the Darkspawn used to stay away from this place. This is a clear indication that the Elven gods will be in charge of the Darkspawn hordes. The article also reassures that the Blight will be an issue on a scale larger than ever before. You might wonder, there are two Elven gods, so wouldn't they argue over who gets to control the army? I have a suspicion regarding how this is going to be handled by BioWare. The reason why I suspected that Ghilan'nan would make a comeback in the first place and not Andruil was the fact that she was a creator of some monstrous creatures. Now that it has been confirmed, I finally want to discuss with you a story from Tevinter Knight's book because it's truly creepy. And for anybody who ever said that Dragon Age The Veilguard is not gloomy enough, I assure you that it's going to be the scariest game in the franchise. Okay, so the mini story I want to talk about with you is called Horror of Hormak. The story is about two wardens, Ramesh and Lesha, who travel to a forest in Nevarra in order to find their missing friend called Jovis, who was leading an expedition in that area. They first stumble upon one of the members of that expedition called Frido. She's not well and her body is being overtaken by some toxin she's unable to identify, and it does not seem to be the corruption. She clawed her eyes out and started giving very vague comments like, "We went too far, too deep, something's down there, something's bad. We thought it was Darkspawn, but it's worse, because it's different, you see. Not the same at all, not twisted but made, created. 3 died, they were lucky, I wasn't. Escaped, but not really. Don't make me go back, not there, not where they are. I will not, I cannot, we must leave. This place to her, to them. They all built it for her, they wait for her. I'm free, I paid the price." Frido eventually runs away and the two wardens find her dead, grey ooze coming out of her mouth and smelling like brine. Remember the concept art for this sea creature, by the way? The team decided to press forward and they started coming across strange creatures. They looked like different combinations of Darkspawn, so for example Shrieks had body pieces of Harlocks, sometimes the Darkspawn would be mixed with animals, they were all just monsters. I'll remind you how before Ghilan'nan was ascended to godhood, she was requested by the evanuris to destroy her creations. It seems like she lied about doing that. And then when you look at her character design, she's clearly a mix of different creatures herself, her long hala-like neck really standing out the most. Back to the story though. The wardens eventually come across an old dwarven underground settlement, the Hormak Thaig, that turns out to be a production center of some kind of monsters. It's quickly revealed that the Darkspawn were preparing an army of mutants for Ghilan'nan. Why would dwarves serve the evanuris is something we'll discuss in the future. Anyway, as Ramesh and Lesha explore the location, they find something really creepy and memorable recorded on the walls. So, you know how Dalish tend to get all their stories wrong and they still brand themselves with Valaslins? There are more things that they do that they absolutely should not. A part of their culture, for example, involves living in the mobile houses called the Aravels. The wardens, while exploring the monster lair, found out random art on the walls. They started seeing carvings of halas pulling the Aravels, but the halas were off, twisted, and had an almost insectile look to them, and the Aravels were barred and they looked like prison ships delivering sacrifices for Ghilan'nan. She would turn the elves into twisted monsters. Jovis, the warden that was finally found in that structure, dwarven structure, temporarily managed to preserve some sanity and warns his friends that there are 11 more structures like this one in Theras. I don't want to spoil the whole story. I think it's really worth reading. It's incredibly well written and sets the right mood for Dragon Age The Veilguard. I mentioned all of that, however, because I think that Ghilan'nan will have an army of monsters independent from Elgar'nan's. As I mentioned, even those monstrous creations in the moments of temporary sanity admit that whatever is consuming their mind is not the Darkspawn corruption. It's different, so it's not gonna be something that Elgar'nan has control over, in my opinion. Okay, so that was a big side note. Let's go back to the prologue story that the Game Informer was describing. The team was brought back to the Arlathan forest through an alluvion. On the way, they meet Ireline and Strife, two veil jumpers who we have already met in the comic book called The Missing. They are searching for their companion called Bellara. Far away in the forest, we can see 3 rock rings floating over some building. Let's read another chunk of the article that describes what's gonna happen. As we progress through the forest, we finally find Bellara. Bellara explains we're all trapped in a veil bubble and there's no way out once you pass through it. Bellara spots a floating fortress and thinks the artifact needed to destroy the veil bubble is in there. To reach it though, we must remove the floating rock rings. So fast forward, the rings are going to get destroyed, the team will make it to the center of the temple, fight an ogre mini-boss fight, and finally get their hands on the artifact. The article continues to describe the events. Within the temple is a particular artifact known as the Nadas Dertalen, which means the inevitability of knowledge. Bellara uses a special crystal to power the artifact and remove it from a pedestal, removing the veil bubble. Then the Nadas Dertalen comes alive as an archive spirit, but because the crystal used to power it breaks, we learn little about the spirit before it disappears. Fortunately, Bellara thinks she can fix it. And that's how the demo ends. I will once again remind you that we hear nothing about Varric, which is not a good sign. Part of me wonders if we will perhaps think he's lost, but he will make some kind of miracle comeback later. I don't know. Okay, well, I want to release this video before everybody goes to bed, so I will end this discussion at that. Thank you very much for watching all the way to the end. Let me know what your thoughts are. I'm hoping you are even more excited for the game now because the lore in Dragon Age The Veilguard sounds like lots of fun. As always, the script for this video will be available for free on Patreon. If you like my content, make sure to like, subscribe, and follow me on social media platforms. Take care.